Hi, Jordan. Hey, David.
Nice to meet you.
Team Bravo, you will have 20 minutes to present your solution to the judges. You will be giving a warning when you have 5 and 2 minutes remaining. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately. No information will be considered after 20 minutes has lapsed. Following your presentations, there will be a 10-minute question and answer. You will be given a 2-minute warning. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes. You may begin when ready.
Hello, my name is Amber. This is Jaden, Joni, and Ben, and today we will be talking about Mastercard and creating a framework. So to give you a brief overview of how we're going to address this, we'll start with an introduction, our problem, criteria, our analysis, our framework for recommendations before wrapping it up. So to dive right in, Mastercard, known for their slogan Priceless, created in 1997 is when this was coined, which is the year many of us up here were born. So that's been around a while. Mastercard's definitely a big player in the industry. And they, like any business, are looking for profit, but they're looking to take it a step further and create value for shareholders. So they're looking for a world beyond cash. Today, when 85% of transactions are still happening in cash and checks, they are able to grow and develop in that space. And they're also looking to connect parties. So the merchants, acquirers, issuers, and cardholders, of course. They're looking to make each transaction as seamless as possible and efficient for all of these parties involved. Now, they say they are in the technology industry, which, as we know, is rapidly growing and changing today. They are operating on quicksand. If you think about the technology we had 10 years ago versus today, you can get your Amazon packages delivered by drone, we have self-driving cars, you unlock your phone with your face. So rapidly changing, and they need to be able to stay ahead of that curve and gain on competition. And then looking at the international side of it, they're in 210 countries. So obviously there's going to be different obstacles when expanding products or rolling out new services that need to be addressed. So our problem, how do they create a framework for automation investment decisions? So that is our main problem. Like I said, they want to look at profit, but also take it a step further, quantifying these intangible assets, which we'll talk about later. So subsidiary issues include remaining competitive in a changing environment. So at this time, competition can come out of anywhere. We see companies that are launched with GoFundMes and within a few years are major players in any industry. And then along with that, the international side of it, the Ministry of Finance in Singapore gave them a grant to develop businesses there. And that means that they are not only trying to keep cardholders there happy, but also the government, taking it a step further than just following the laws there, but also are we developing these projects. And so our criteria for this, we're going to dive into each of these, but starting with employee engagement and so on. So diving right into this. Employee engagement. An example of this is robotic process automation. So software robots are able to replicate these simple tasks often associated with the data entry. Now, these things that they're doing are vital to business processes and need to be done, but often can take up a lot of time, and when you add in human error to that, automation can really help solve those problems. So a Gallup poll revealed that engagement among employees hovers between 30 to 40%. And they define engaged employees as those who are enthusiastic and committed to their work and workplace. Now, as an employer, if only 30% of your employees are engaged, that can be a big issue when you think about the other effects of that, such as employee turnover. So by automating some of these mundane, simple, repetitive tasks that are often described as robotic, you're able to free up that time and engage those employees on a deeper level. They have more time to focus creatively on projects, which will then, in the job market, increase demands for creativity, interpersonal skills, and empathy, which can be lacking in these jobs that are very data heavy. So that, in general, can increase productivity when we're taking away all of the busy work from these employees. What other value can they bring to the company? So that increases their satisfaction with the company, thus lowering employee turnover and increasing efficiency. So we're looking to quantify this through the employee net promoter score. And this is just one simple question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our company to friends? So from there, you get a number 1 to 10, and then you can ask follow-up questions. Why did you choose this number? What can we do to make it better? So that will help determine the difference between your promoters of the company, the people rating you a 9 and 10, from the detractors, the people on the lower end of the scale. So moving on to the next criteria, Joni will enlighten us.
Yeah, so Amber touched on opportunities for employees, but we also want to look at opportunities for the firm as a whole. And so our next intangible asset is capacity for value creation activities. An example of this is fit-for-purpose automation. This can help really identify some of the pain points for vendors so that employees at Mastercard have a basis to start coming up with new solutions for these problems. And Mastercard already does a really great job of this with their Mastercard labs. Employees can go and interact with each other, and there's incentive for coming up with new ideas. So as you take on more investment projects over time, your organizational process assets are going to really benefit from this. So in project management terms, process assets cover processes and procedures, and also corporate knowledge base. So you're really putting your experience in the bank, and with each investment opportunity that you take, you can draw from your past experience. Next is predictive analytics. Whenever we use automation technology, we're really including our client more in the payroll process. And so this relationship that you're going to build with your clients is going to help you better predict their needs in the future before they even realize that it is a need. How we want to quantify this is estimating the purchases of additional services that customers will buy based on the relationship that you're going to gain from this automation system. Our next intangible asset is speed to market. A good example of this is off-the-shelf solutions. These offer standardized products that you can later cater to different client needs. So they're able to go to market fairly quickly. We really want timely development, but we want to make sure that we are maintaining quality standards that are so important to Mastercard. And the way that we decided to quantify this was look at timeline comparisons of past projects that Mastercard has done. And we can look at days or weeks or years, however long it takes to get that product to market, compare it with past history, but also competitor performance. There are some caveats with this. Obviously, no two projects are the same, and sometimes it's hard to get information on competitor timelines. So the next intangible benefit is reputation. So Mastercard has had some very successful partnerships in the past, one of these being Avid Exchange. And so the reputation that's gained when we add this automation technology is really important for customers and also other companies, because companies will look at Mastercard and want to partner with them in the future, which could create value for shareholders. Mastercard will be able to leverage its core network and its reputation and further diversify and grow in the technology arena. And how we want to quantify this is the customer net promoter score. This is very similar to what Amber brought up about the employee net promoter score. And it's just looking at whether customers are willing to recommend us to their peers. This is just a diagram showing the core network of Mastercard, and that there are so many different interactions and players in the payment process with acquirers, issuers, merchants, and account holders. And so the reputation piece is really just so important to what you do. The last is the ability to scale technology. An example of this is data science algorithms. They detect anomalies that humans may not be able to identify on their own. And so the thought is that we're doing more with less, more output with less inputs. We want to look at operating margin for this. We believe that adding automation technologies will increase revenues, but our costs should remain relatively stable if we do not have to hire more employees. And we feel like this will make the firm more profitable. Next, we're going to discuss our recommendation, a framework for investment decisions.
Thanks, Jenny. So with all that being said, we've constructed what we believe to be the ideal framework for measuring this automation investment decision making. As you can see here, we have 5 steps within our framework, with the first being taking a look at the global competitive landscape, and then wrapping up with the 5th step of developing a way to evaluate completed projects. We did take a look at other potential solutions, but we felt like they might have focused too much on profit and revenue generation, whereas within the case, we knew that Mastercard is concerned with these other benefits and other intangible assets. So we chose this framework instead. The first step, take a look at the global technology landscape. So we know that technology is increasing, as we've touched on throughout this presentation, and the success of a company really lies heavily on their ability to adapt to a changing market and changing technology. The automation of processes is also adapting very rapidly. We see this in industries outside of the one that Mastercard currently operates in. We see this in the healthcare industry with robots performing surgeries. We see this in the automobile industry with self-driving cars such as Tesla. So these competitive pressures from outside industries are going to directly affect the industry that Mastercard operates in as well. The tools and techniques for this are listed here, and several examples have already been mentioned throughout the presentation. Okay, so we'll take a look at the financial industry landscape as well. So here we want to make a distinction between AI automation and AI augmentation. So automation, sometimes throughout our research, it seemed like it carries a negative connotation with it, that it's replacing jobs, and we want to shift that mindset, shift that paradigm in our mind and in the mind of Mastercard into AI augmentation, which is simply using the resources, using the technology that we currently possess in order to enhance the jobs that already exist. And so Mastercard is also in a struggle to differentiate from competitors. So they do this by identifying as a technology company, and so they want to ensure this through employee incentive programs where they reward their employees for their creative thinking. The second step, so consider the value of intangible assets. Here we have our 5 types on the left, and then the ways in which we're seeking to quantify them on the right. And as you notice with the way that we're seeking to quantify these, they aren't really focused on profit or revenue. They're focused on more things like brand management and brand image in the mind of consumers and employees. Third step, so build on a history of past successful projects. For any company, not just Mastercard, it's very important to take a look at what you've done well in the past and learn from that and improve on that in the future. And so you need to know where you've been before you know where to go. And so their acquisition of Brighterion in 2017, this was successful because it contained a diverse portfolio of AI and machine learning. And then their 2 partnerships with Verifone and AvidXchange were also very successful in enhancing the customer experience. So Verifone is into chip reading. They've developed that technology and made it quicker for the consumer for purchasing processes. And then AvidXchange created this business-to-business hub where small and mid-sized businesses can utilize this technology to make their processing and payments a lot simpler. And then also we just want to touch on organic growth. Mastercard needs to keep in mind that they possess a lot of human capital that can also enhance and grow their business as well. Hand it off to Ben.
Thanks, Jake. So finally, we're going to talk about points 4 and 5, which are the final points of our framework, and really are what the crux of this entire recommendation rely on, is the actual implementation after the crafting of all these ideas that we've already talked about. And trying to keep an arm's length distance from some of the more traditional criteria and metrics that maybe some other decision processes look at, such as revenue and profit, like we've already talked about, and really implementing a mixed, balanced framework to actually integrate into a strategy. So when we're implementing these intangibles and tying the culture that they create into overarching corporate strategy, we're really trying to take a long-term view and a wholesome, holistic mindset of how those are going to be implemented. The idea is that as you create that at the top with corporate strategy crafting, that will trickle down through the company, through the actual day-to-day operations of what employees are doing and what they're incentivized to do within their work. So there are really four main channels that Mastercard has either already begun doing this through, or that we recommend they continue to do, foster, create, etc. The first of these is with safety and security, primarily with the advancements they've made in payment protection and fraud prevention. And a lot of this has been driven by eliminating a lot of that mundane processing that comes through Mastercard on a day-to-day basis, allowing the actual employees to come up with more creative solutions for customers, both existing as well as new. Additionally, some of the co-brand and conversion relationships, these have been really key for Mastercard, certainly over the course of their history. But with recent formation of relationships with retail outlets like LLV and Cabela's with their card, as well as with the government of Mexico with their commercial banking arm. This is really going to be a crucial point where Mastercard can continue to enhance their relationships with clients, as well as lever up their revenue without increasing costs. Additionally, improved customer experience and employee experience, pretty much like we've mentioned already within the presentation. We think that these intangibles are crucial in driving future growth for Mastercard, although they won't necessarily have an immediate, short-term, or direct impact on our financial statements. And so, kind of going in line with that, this is the three-pronged chart that Mastercard has outlined of their different sections of growth and expansion. And certainly, they have relied heavily on that core category on the far left-hand side and should continue to leverage this to enhance growth in the other two categories. But as we're thinking about how to deploy this corporate strategy based on these intangible assets and values, we really need to think about spreading them throughout the entire company and throughout each umbrella of growth, but more specifically within the diversification and building of new growth, as MasterCard has already done a little bit of with safety and security and loyalty and process. So finally, it's crucial that we actually develop a system to evaluate how the framework is working and also create a feedback loop to both understand how we're setting, reaching, and meeting goals, both that are actually tangible and that maybe are more qualitative from a perspective of what management is thinking and how it's actually playing out within day-to-day operations. And so basically the key way that we're going to measure this is via the quantifiable intangibles that we've already talked about within our presentation and how those change over time, whether that's based on set goals from internally or based on goals from the rest of the industry. And additionally, we do want to keep some sort of a dynamic and quick way of evaluating how these initiatives within the framework are playing out. Since technology moves so quickly, so our recommendation is a quarterly evaluation with either a CTO or a CPO within Mastercard. But certainly the caveat here is that we do need to keep a long-term perspective to try and be able to zoom out, eliminate the noise that may be affecting the short-term analysis, and really see what the true results are. So to conclude, this is our 5-step framework model that we're recommending, going all the way from analyzing the global competitive landscape and finishing with the evaluation and the feedback loop of the entire framework. So with that, we thank you for your time, your attention, and we'll open it up for questions.
I really like the framework, and I like that you have quantification. So a lot of those quantifications those seem like lagging indicators. So when you're sitting there evaluating multiple automation opportunities, which of those would be the strongest indicator of deciding between investing between two projects, for example?
I think I think that our looking at profitability, the slide where I showed you that we feel like revenues will increase, but costs should stay the same due to not having to hire more employees. I'd say that would be a big one. Some of the ones that we used, such as the reputation scores, obviously those ones aren't as financially related.
No,
However,
I like that about them. So don't get me wrong, I thought it was a great framework. So if you're sitting there evaluating things before, I like the feedback loop too. So you go back and say, did I actually deliver with this project what we said we would? Are you expecting folks to be able to project, like what's the benefit to employees? What is going to be the net promoter score as a result of this? Is that an expectation when you're putting all this before you as a business case?
I think that at least within the elements that we've kind of outlined, maybe not the actual end purchase of additional products from clients, but certainly the conversation that's had with them and the interest that's shown to say, hey, will this implementation of this specific project, say, within the fraud prevention category, since that affects your particular subsect of your industry so much, are you interested in it? Is that something that we can talk about? So maybe as a very preliminary baseline, that would be the best in terms of more of a forward-looking way to look at it.
Can you talk a little bit about within your framework, at what points and how the framework kind of addresses determining what the right solution is for the problem, right? Because we outlined all the different automation approaches or potential technologies. Where in the framework and how do we determine which one of those that we want to move forward with?
I think that really hinges and pivots on almost some of the analysis we did in terms of employee satisfaction and almost empowerment. And from a Mastercard perspective, trusting that our hiring techniques and our cultivation of the talent that we have can create those solutions for us.
A question about, I think in the section of the framework where you talked about the financial industry landscape, there was a delineation between automation versus augmentation. Talk to us about how that delineation helps your framework, or talk a little bit more about the benefit of that.
Well, I think just distinguishing the two terms, I think, helps alleviate a lot of confusion. I think it clarifies that automation is not a negative thing. It's positive, and it's going to create more jobs than it's going to eliminate. And so, just clearly defining those two terms, clearly projecting what the framework is designed to do is going to enhance it, and its I guess receptivity by your employees.
And it especially helps, I think, if you are putting constant incentive on new ideas and new development, so that employees don't look at the entrance of automation products and get worried about where they're going to be in a year. And so kind of almost from a culture setting perspective, that's really important too.
yeah, we want automation technology. We want employees to get excited about it, and we don't want it to hurt morale. So that's why I think that distinction is very clear.
So one element of automation that I find is usually underappreciated is the ongoing cost of change and maintenance. So as your business changes, as your processes change, your automations need to change with them. Have you guys thought about how that works into the framework and how you account for that ongoing cost of maintenance and change?
Sure, I think from kind of the bird's eye view perspective that we're taking, the thought process is that the emphasis on rolling out more automated processes to eliminate some of those back and middle office tasks and duties will mitigate the incurred costs from added projects, added costs of continual renewal of some of those internal technologies.
What about the change management aspect of it? You talked about culture and wanting to create a culture where robotics are fun and exciting and but people don't inherently like change. How would you address the change management part of the culture?
I know that's something Joni talked about a lot with the actual program that Mastercard has internally.
Master Labs. It seems like there's a lot of different, it's kind of an umbrella. There's a lot of different programs under that. And I think that it's great when you can get employees away from repetitive tasks and give them an opportunity to use their mind. And so I think that will help just the company culture as a whole and get people more excited about technology.
And I think along with that, a lot of those repetitive tasks, they're not fun. I know we had talked about our past internships, and a lot of those repetitive activities were passed down to us. So while it was a good experience, a lot of these things that can be improved with automation aren't necessarily the reason people go to work in the morning. So I think a certain amount of change could definitely be exciting for them, as long as it's rolled out at an appropriate rate for them.
And also, one benefit of automation is just, like we talked about, it makes you more human. There's never going to be a replacement for human interaction and personal relationships. And so, no matter how advanced we get with technology, people are always going to crave human interaction and meeting with people and having conversation. And so, I think that's a big benefit to automation as well.
Just one quick comment, just as the only person up here in reading classes, I just want to point out that I was deeply offended by pointing out that everyone was born after this year.
Good icebreaker.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.